The cool morning air rolled off Pinewood Lake, carrying that crisp, earthy scent of early autumn. It was October 12th, 2024, just past 6:30 a.m., and I was sitting at the oak table my father had carved decades ago, sipping black coffee and staring out at the water. The lake was still, reflecting the faint glow of dawn through a thin veil of fog. This cabin in northern Michigan was my sanctuary, a hard-earned retreat after 28 years as a SWAT commander. My daughter, Emily, 16 and fiercely creative, was still asleep in her room, her sketchbook probably open to a half-finished drawing of the shoreline. This place was our escape, where the world's noise faded, and I could finally breathe. But peace, I'd learned, never lasts long when someone with a little power gets a taste for control. It started with a faint scrape at the door, not a knock, just the rough slide of an envelope being shoved underneath. I knew that sound. In Pinewood Estates, letters didn't come to your doorstep unless they meant trouble. I crossed the creaky floorboards and picked it up, a cheap, grainy envelope with the Pinewood Homeowners Association logo stamped in the corner. In bold, angry red ink, a single phrase glared back: "Final notice, physical collection authorized." My gut tightened, but not with fear, with focus. I didn't need to open it to know what this was about. A $47 landscaping fee, one I'd paid back in July. I tore it open anyway, scanning the text. Words like delinquency, non-compliance, and immediate action jumped out, claiming I owed the HOA for a fee I'd settled months ago. If unpaid within 24 hours, they'd send agents for asset verification and collection. It was absurd, the kind of overreach you'd expect from a shady debt collector, not a neighborhood HOA. But this wasn't my first rodeo with Laura Hensley, the HOA president who ran this community like her personal fiefdom. I sat back at the table, the letter in hand, and let my training take over. Emotion doesn't solve problems, evidence does. In the spare bedroom, I pulled open a filing cabinet and flipped through a folder labeled HOA nonsense. 3 years of petty citations. One for a mailbox angled 2 inches off regulation, another for my Jeep parked too close to the curb. Then I found a receipt for the $47 check, dated July 8th, and a bank statement showing it was cashed by the HOA on July 15th. Ironclad proof. I figured this was just a clerical error, so I called the HOA office. It rang 5 times before Laura's syrupy voicemail kicked in, promising a callback in 2 business days. I left a message, calm and precise. "This is John Carver, 17, Lakeview Lane. I received a final notice for a $47 fee I paid on July 8th. Check number 2047, cash July 15th. I have records. Please correct this and confirm in writing." Then I scanned the receipt and statement, attached them to an email with the subject "Incorrect notice for lot 17 proof attached," and hit send. Paper trail established. I poured another coffee and thought that was the end of it. Emily wandered out around 9 a.m., her hair a mess, grabbing a bagel and flipping open her sketchbook. She was sketching the lake again, her pencil moving with that quiet focus I loved to watch. This cabin was for her a place to feel safe, to be a kid. That's why I put up with the HOA's nonsense. By noon, I was back to tinkering with a fishing rod on the porch, the lake shimmering under a pale sun. Then I saw it. Laura's silver SUV crawling down my gravel drive, followed by 2 burly guys in black jackets with lake security stitched across the back. No such thing existed here. They were hired muscle, plain and simple. They didn't head for the door. They marched straight past the cabin, down the slope to my private dock where Emily was sketching, her feet dangling in the water. I set the rod down and followed, my steps measured but my senses sharp. Laura stood at the dock's edge, arms crossed, her lips curled in a smug grin. The 2 men flanked her, their jackets straining over thick arms. "Mr. Carver," Laura called out, her voice cutting through the still air, "we're here about your unpaid debt." I stopped 10 feet away, my voice steady. "There's no debt, Laura. I called this morning and emailed proof of payment." She flicked her hand dismissively. "We didn't get any email. Your account's flagged for collection." One of the men, the bigger one, took a half step forward, his eyes locked on Emily. "That your girl?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. I didn't answer him. I kept my gaze on Laura. "Why are you here?" I asked, my tone harder now. She smirked, glancing at Emily. Our agents are authorized to remove non-compliant residents until the fine is paid. It's in the bylaws. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about $47. This was a power play, a deliberate escalation. They weren't here for money, they were here to intimidate, and they'd just made the mistake of targeting my daughter. 30 years of SWAT training snapped into place, not as panic, but as cold, surgical clarity. I straightened, my eyes locking onto the man who'd spoken. I gave him a look I'd used only twice outside, a tactical opal look that says, "You've crossed a line, and there's no coming back." Then I turned to Laura. "You and your men will leave my property now. You're trespassing. You have 60 seconds, or I call the sheriff." Her smirk faltered. The quieter thug touched her arm, shaking his head. They'd read the room. They turned and trudged back to their SUV. As they climbed in, the loud one shouted, "We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m., for the money." I didn't respond. I stood there until their taillights vanished. Emily was pale when I reached her on the dock. "Dad, can they do that?" she asked, her voice small. "No," I said, resting a hand on her shoulder. "They can't. Let's go inside." Back at the table, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my neighbor Tom, a retired electrician who'd always been friendly. "John, check your email. You need to see this." I opened my laptop and found a forwarded email from Laura to the HOA board, sent 3 days earlier. One line stopped me cold. For repeat offenders, especially over small fines, letters are ignored. I've authorized Lake Security for physical compliance visits to ensure immediate payment. There it was, proof this was no mistake, but a calculated shakedown. My strategy shifted. This was no longer about defense. It was about taking Laura down. I called 2 old SWAT buddies, Matt Ruiz and Chris Teller, who were already headed up for a fishing weekend. "Change of plans," I told Matt. "Hostile HOA situation. Bring your gear." He didn't hesitate. "On our way." 1 hour. By dusk, their truck pulled in, loaded with what looked like fishing gear, but was actually high-def cameras and audio recorders. Over coffee, I laid out the plan. Let Laura walk into a trap tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'd record everything, multiple angles, synced timestamps, redundant systems. No mistakes. Matt set up a trail cam in a cedar tree overlooking the drive. Chris hid audio recorders in our trucks. A GoPro went on a shelf inside, angled toward the dock. Emily was to stay in her room, recording from a window if things got loud. By 5 a.m., we were ready, the lake shrouded in a heavy, gray mist that felt like it was holding its breath. At 9:47, Tom texted, "Silver SUV on the road. They're coming." The gravel crunched at 10:01. Laura and her 2 goons marched straight to the dock, boots thudding, expecting Emily to be there. The loud one bellowed, "We're here for the girl. Time's up." I stepped onto the porch, a folder in hand, and spoke clearly for the cameras. "It's 10:03 a.m. Please state your names and legal authority for entering my property." Laura scoffed. "You know who I am, John. We're here for the $47, per the bylaws." I held up the canceled check and bank statement. "This debt was paid July 8th. You cashed it July 15th. Then I pulled out her email. "This authorizes physical compliance visits. That's your signature, right?" Her face went pale. The loud thug, panicking, lunged for the cabin door, snarling, "We're getting her." It was locked. Before he could try again, Chris stepped out, his sidearm visible but holstered. Matt appeared from the side, equally calm, equally armed. The thug froze. Then came the sirens, faint at first, then roaring closer. 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled in, blocking Laura's SUV. Deputy Harlan, a no-nonsense veteran, walked straight to me. "Mr. Carver?" I nodded. "Thanks for coming." Laura stammered. "You called them?" I smiled thinly. 15 minutes ago, with all my evidence." Harlan turned to her. "Ma'am, did you authorize these men to attempt to remove a minor over a paid fine?" Laura collapsed, sobbing. "I didn't mean that." The cuffs clicked on her, then the thugs, for trespassing and attempted unlawful restraint. Harlan played Laura's email aloud for the gathering neighbors, who gasped. The squad cars left, taking Laura's reign with them. The fallout was swift. The HOA board blew up my phone, but I ignored them. By Monday, Laura was ousted. The county DA charged her and the thugs, calling out a pattern of HOA abuse. Neighbors started sharing their own stories, fines for trivialities, threats over nothing. Then came a certified letter from the HOA's insurer, Northwood Underwriters, offering $20,000 to settle. I didn't want their money. I wanted reform. I wrote back, demanding 3 changes: no physical collections, transparent fine reviews with evidence, and the right to record all HOA interactions. The board caved in days, sending revised bylaws and an apology. I banked the check for Emily's college fund. By late October, the lake was quiet again. Matt and Chris came back for that fishing trip. Emily sketched on the dock, laughing with Chris. Neighbors waved, shared stories, formed a watch group to keep the HOA honest. The fight wasn't about $47, it was about drawing a line against tyranny. I'd done it with evidence, patience, and a trap Laura never saw coming. So what do you think? Was I too harsh, or did Laura deserve every bit of it? Have you ever faced an HOA bully? Drop a comment with your story and where you're from. Let's keep this conversation going. And if you want more stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe for the next takedown.